Hey everyone, today we are talking about something that is so essential and is so necessary. If you've listened to a few of our episodes, you will understand the flavoring and the style of our podcast. You might get some semblances of levity today, but we are going to be covering quite a heavy sort of subject matter. So if this isn't for you, completely understandable. But yeah, like I said, this is a completely necessary and essential viewing experience that we believe everyone should go through. So that's why we're covering it today. This is for your reference. You got your host, KT.
And OT.
And we are covering the Netflix series that came out in May of 31st called When They See Us. And most recently, on the 12th of June, there was an interview with the actors and the real Exonerated Five. Essentially, it goes for an hour, and it's quite healing. I think it's a nice debrief from the mini-series.
It is. It was quite sad listening to the five members just talking about their experiences and them watching the show and how they felt afterwards. So, yeah.
So we'll definitely go through that. So I guess just be aware you'll probably get a different type of episode than we usually do. But again, we're still us. And there are many dimensions to us, like I'm sure there are dimensions to you guys. So thanks for staying with us, or thanks for checking out our other episodes if you're not going to stay with this one. Just some general stats. So like I mentioned, it came out in May 31st. It's directed by the amazing, just all-encompassing Ava DuVernay. And then we've got quite an expansive cast, very impressive. So we'll just cover the main cast. By all means, feel free to check out the full list, but let's just cover off with the Exonerated Five, as they now have been coined by Oprah, and we always obey Oprah. So let's go. So Raymond Santana, the younger version of him was played by Marquise Rodriguez, and the older version of him was played by Freddie Mirares. Sorry, apologies. We also have Kevin Richardson, who is played by Asante Black.
What a name. What a name.
What a kid, especially in the Oprah interview.
So for those of you who don't know, Asante Swahili meaning thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
For your reference. I am telling you, once we finished that interview, I was on Ava DuVernay's Twitter, and then I stumbled across Asante Black's Twitter, so we are following him. So shout out if you're listening. Probably not, but that's fine. So Asante Black plays the younger version of Kevin Richardson, and the older version is played by Justin Cunningham. Yusuf Salam is played by Ethan Harris as the younger version, and then we've got Chris Chalk as the older Yusuf. For its Antron McCrae, we have Khalil Harris as the younger and Jovan Adepo as the older Antron. And lastly, we have Corey Wise, who is played younger and older by the same actor, Jarrell Jerome. This cast, wow. I hope to continue to see them as time goes on, but Jarrell particularly just blew me away.
He was really good. It's quite an amazing ensemble, and it's just intricacies, you know. It's the little things that they convey in their acting that just gets you. You get someone like Jarrell playing Corey Wise, and you could feel his pain. You could see how he's struggling, and him being in solitary, especially, and how he portrayed that, it was
Yeah.
mind numbing, somber, and just quite a good performance.
Jarrell is 21 years old. To be able to, you know, to allow us a glimpse of Corey Wise's world and that isolation, to be able to portray that and to convincingly lay out what that might feel like for us to feel that emptiness, for us to feel that sorrow. uh, no accolades are enough
True.
for Jarrell. But yeah, for the whole cast, I think also just some side notes. Michael K. Williams is always bringing quality. And his presence was very much felt in this series. We also have Niecy Nash, Vera Farmiga, Felicity Hoffman, and a whole bunch of other people. But what a series! What a mini series!
Yeah.
Let's go into first impressions. There's really no need to mention spoilers. This case has happened already, and this has come out. I guess if you don't really want to know about the miniseries because you haven't watched it yet, then by all means come back to us. But let's talk about the Central Park 5 case as it happened. Did you, so in 1989 and then later on in 2002 when they were exonerated, did you, across the pond in Kenya, did you hear about it? What did you know about it?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I knew nothing about this quite until recently, because I think there's a moment you were telling me about the Central Park 5, I think a few years ago, but that was just in passing. But then when this came out and you told me about it, it was information to me. So had to read up on it, had to see what was going on because I had no idea about this case whatsoever.
Yeah. I was fairly young. I was quite young when they were exonerated. So obviously I wasn't at an age where I could comprehend the intricacies of the corrupt justice system and all of that complex shittiness of the world. I didn't understand that. All I knew was there were 5 kids that were being accused of something that my brain couldn't even comprehend. And it wasn't until later on when I was, finishing high school that I found out that they were actually exonerated. When I was a kid at the time, I just heard that, they went into court. But it's sad. I think it's one of those things that in this world, well, even in the 90s and the early 2000s, all you ever know is headlines, right? Especially if you're at a formative age, you form your opinions from, the people that raise you and from the school you go to and the churches that you might congregate at. So, headlines are essentially just headlines. And to watch when they see us, it really brings back the humanistic side of the story.
It does. It really does. And there's so many nuances to this. Like 5 black kids get arrested
Yeah.
for rape, and in the media, the way it's played out, the assumption is they're guilty
Yeah.
straight off the bat, you know?
Yeah. And I think even to that extent, maybe they were wrongfully, charged or convicted. But I think, not being American and not being African American, I think there's something to be said about the word privilege gets overused a lot, right? But if you think about like the inequity of it, because the stats are there about people that are wrongfully convicted in the United States. A whole proportion of them are African American men. But if you just say in general, right? like the Making a Murderer series. I can't remember what the family's name was. But, you know, when you talk about people that are wrongfully convicted, the chances of the case being reviewed, unfortunately, might be down to your skin color. And that's what's unfortunate, because no one's really checking for anyone, you know, depending on the circumstances. Does that make sense?
It does,
I
but
really hope it does.
you have those organizations which try and right some of these wrongs,
Yeah.
like trying to get innocent people exonerated. So there is some effort put in
But
place.
those are band-aids on a broken system.
True. But then again, the system will never in itself try and admit that they're wrong.
Well, the theory of the justice system works. The theory of it, right? Even in ancient Roman times, you had courts, you had judicial proceedings. It makes sense theoretically. However, what we start to see in When They See Us, and in many cases of similar sort of circumstances, is it gets colored by wealth, it gets colored by privilege, and it gets colored by corruption. Because when we were watching this, I got really frustrated because it was like, okay, so the system makes sense. You've got the police that, you know, oversee the community, that are supposed to protect and serve, as you see in so many TV shows and movies and hopefully real life, right? And then if people are doing wrong, then you move them on to the courts, where you have prosecutors, where you have judges. And if, you know, if it's determined that people are guilty, they go into jail, hopefully for rehabilitation. But we know that doesn't necessarily equal that in reality, right? But you've got this system that should theoretically work. What it doesn't account for are
Biases.
yeah, normal people that are racist, but they happen to be in a position to arrest and to be able to take advantage of the power that they have over the general sort of public. You have the prosecutor, where, you know, she was using her position to essentially, she created the whole narrative herself, right? And she worked backwards from that. So the system that you have, it's like, you need to, you know, you tell normal citizens, you need to operate within this system without acknowledging the fact that the system isn't there to help anybody. And as much as, from what I can gauge in, and this is a stupid way to gauge it, but from what I can gauge in American TV shows and movies that I watch, you know, the police and the FBI hate each other, like prosecutors, lawyers hate the police. Like, it seems like they all hate each other, but at the end of the day, to uphold the illusion of justice, they will protect people before they protect the public, right? That's kind of what it seems like to me. And something that I definitely want to talk about while we were watching When They See Us was the fact that the justice system does not exist to effectively govern all people, right? What it's become is a machine, and if you've got money, then you have some sort of hope of exonerating yourself. If you don't have money, and if you're from like a lower income sort of area, you're fucked. And, you know, watching the first episode was so hard. Like, I even told you, I need a couple of days before we pick this back up again. That first episode was so heartbreaking.
It was really hard.
In the most infuriating ways. Like, I was so angry, but I was so upset at the same time. And also layering the fact that this is based on a true story. And it's very, very rare for these sorts of biopic sort of documentaries. It's rare how much involvement the actual people had to this series.
Yeah.
Ava seemed to spend so much time cultivating their truths.
Mm.
And to have that is so essential, right?
Yeah.
But that first episode was really hard to get through. And what was really, really breaking my heart was seeing the parents of the exonerated five
Mm.
and how they were so ill-equipped for such a situation. Raymond's father had to go to work. There wasn't even a question about that, because if you miss work, you lose your job.
Yeah.
So the grandmother was left with Raymond, and she had to leave the room in the interrogation. And more in that first episode, you know, there was no parental guardianship. There wasn't anything about consulting a lawyer. And it's just so unfair.
You know what? You know what the main theme of this was? Ignorance.
Yeah.
Ignorance
On
of the
both
law,
sides.
ignorance
Yeah.
of your rights, and it's so clear cut. Like, a lot of parents aren't, a lot of people aren't in the position to be able to, you know, they're struggling to provide,
Yeah.
working long hours just to get food on the table. So, but you really, really need to know your rights
Yeah.
to be able to navigate such a thing, because especially in a system where blind lady justice is only can apparently only see people of color and your social status, then you really need to be aware of what your rights are in case something like this happens, in case you need an attorney, in case you're arrested and you don't know what to do. You need to know what the police are capable of doing and what grounds, and just to be able to say, I need a lawyer. I'm not saying anything without legal representation. I'm waiting. I'm underage. It's just,
But in that turn, it makes the judicial system sound like a troll under the bridge. Like, you need the right password, otherwise you're not going to get access to the right help. You know what I mean? Why does it need to be a game of being able to receive the right help and the right counsel? I guess you could talk about, you know, overpopulation and under resource. I guess you could talk about that. But at the end of the day, the system is supposed to, and supposed is a very dangerous word, right? But the system is supposed to be helping people. But you need to know the right ways to finesse the situation. You need to have the right money. You need to, you know, grease the right hands. Like, it's just wrong.
it is wrong, but sadly, that's the reality,
Yeah.
you know? So unless something drastic happens, and unless people are more informed of what their rights are, it's just a losing battle.
And I think one of the most heartbreaking things was watching the Oprah interview, which we would recommend you guys watch if you haven't had a chance to, is when she actually interviewed the exonerated five, 30 years on from the ordeal. You could still see that they were still dealing with it.
Yeah, they're still dealing with it. And the most heartbreaking moment was when Anton McRae was talking about how he'd never forgive his father. Because
let's talk about it.
because I think we had different perspectives of this when we were watching the show.
Yeah.
Michael K. Williams, who plays Anton McRae's father,
Yeah.
was guided out by the police and was told that you need to convince your son to confess, and then we'll let him go. Well, he was threatened. He was threatened that if you don't do so, or it was implied, if you don't do this, then we'll tell your employer that you have a record.
Yeah.
And that essentially means that he loses his job. He can't provide for his family. So in that, he takes it upon himself to convince the son to confess to a crime he did not commit.
Yeah, I didn't agree with that.
To the point where he got so aggressive when the cops came in. He threw a chair across the room.
No, because in his...
Damn it!
Yeah.
Admit, confess. And the son was like, okay, yes, I did it. And now Anton McRae's father is like, oh, now I think we're ready to go home or whatever.
Yeah. I guess it's a hard situation. And as you start to grow up, you realize that your parents didn't have a handle on shit, right? Your parents, like you know, you see your parents as these godly figures that, are perfect and they
Are
know
there to
how to
protect you.
execute. Yeah, and they're there to protect you and they know how to execute every situation. But as you start to realize your parents aren't that, and they are human and they are flawed. And in his warped sense, he thought he was helping Antron. I didn't agree with that.
What a moment to find out that your parent is actually human, when you desperately need them to step up.
Because what would have been the alternative? He would have lost his job. I don't really know how hard the job market was at the time, but he would have lost his job. But
For an
that would have
ex-convict, let's just say that's it,
no. But if he had done it the other way and not made his son confess, he would have lost his job. But his son wouldn't have been in prison. Actually, no. To be fair, they probably would have found a way to warp him back in. But as we continued to watch this series, you saw how Antron's father, the guilt and the shame of what he had made his son do, literally made him ill. Right? So who won in the end?
No one won, but Anton lost a lot.
That is a very fucking real situation because okay, so we disagreed on how that was handled. But if you fast forward on to later in life, because he left, right? He left the family.
Yep.
He just even before he left, he was already absent-minded, right?
He didn't go to the son's hearing until halfway through when he went to testify, and he pretty much convicted the son right then and there. His testimony alone was
was damning. Yes.
Just damning, yeah.
You say that, but then you also believe that Antron should have forgiven him. And this is something that we should definitely pick up on. And it was interesting to see Antron talk, like the real Antron, because you could see that pain was still there.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him.
I do not blame him either.
So let's fast forward. So we get to a point where Antron is released from jail and he's back home to find out that his father's back home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we talked quite a lot about this moment because you were all about the path of forgiveness, but I could definitely understand how Antron was feeling and what he was saying as well, because there's no one else in your life that you would continue to have around you except for your family that continue to treat you like shit, that continue to let you down, that treat you in ways that you would never treat anyone else, but because they're blood related to you, you continue to let them in your life. And for me personally, maybe another day we won't go through it, but personally, that's dead wrong. That's dead wrong. Just because that was Antron's father, Antron just has to automatically forgive him. He spent his most formative years in prison for something he didn't even do. And I don't believe that Antron's father thought that Antron did it. But you know what? Again, who am I? Who am I to say? I don't know anything about being an African American man, right? Living in the late 80s in New York and how corrupted the system is. So I can only talk from my frame of reference that, in a lot of senses may be ignorant and may be naive. But on a human level, I can understand why Antron didn't forgive his father. Even to this day, because we were watching the Oprah interview and he still to this day does not forgive his father.
Yes. I think I was coming more from the point where his dad is on his deathbed. And
so it's like, okay, I'll just forget all of the shit things you did to me.
No, you could clearly see he regrets everything he's done. He's very ashamed. And to what point do you hold a grudge, regardless of how it affected his life? Because he lost a better part of his childhood to this, but yeah. I just thought it was a bit mean-spirited. Like I don't know. I would have just even if I don't forgive him fully, at least to give him the sense of
Why?
peace
But why though?
before he departs this world.
Why?
I think it was just it was a decent thing to do.
Yeah. Well, my why was just more my perturbedness. It wasn't
I don't know.
necessarily you. I don't expect you to give me a perfect answer. I'm just so exasperated by this.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, I
He was a
understand it.
fucking child. He trusted his father.
I understand that. But then again, you're on your deathbed. And if giving this man a modicum of peace before he dies, surely that's not, well, I can't speak to what's enough, but I would have just thought that you could do that. Like, it's not hard. Even if you don't truly forgive him, just say the words, hug him, hold his hand. You don't even need to apologize. You don't even need to accept anything. Just be there.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Let's leave
yeah,
this because we're definitely not going to agree with each other.
Yeah.
And neither of us are right, and neither of us are wrong. The only thing I would say in regards to this particular situation,
He's justified to feel however he does feel. He is justified. And however he
yes,
wants to handle the situation or
yes,
how he
but
handled it.
I'm more thinking about our listeners. But yes, I agree. if if people are treating you like shit, including your family, self-care is so important. So just make sure you look after yourselves. I just want to, because I know we're not going to agree on this and we're such different people. And for me, the fact that you're so accommodating to people that wrong you so much.
Well, they're dying anyway. What more?
No, sorry. Yeah. No, sir. Sorry. Let's stop because we're going to go around. But really, it's like, oh, so I can be the biggest dickhead to everyone. And because I'm dying, everyone's going to come kiss my feet. Nah, man, it's not. Let's stop. we're really not going to get anywhere. But yes, we care about you guys. Just make sure you guys are looking after yourselves is my main point. Don't overextend yourself with people that don't fucking care about you to the point where you're losing your own sense of self, right?
Yeah. I can agree with that.
Oh, okay. Well, it's nice of you to agree with me. That's quite lovely.
You're welcome. I know it feels great.
And I did say we were going to have some levity. Apparently, it's our foundations crumbling. But what's new, guys? What is new? Okay, so who else do you want to talk? Is there anything else you want to say about Antron?
No.
That we haven't covered?
No, not really.
Okay.
I would like to talk about Yusuf.
Okay, before we talk about Yusuf, let's talk about Yusuf's mother. First of all,
she's great. She's amazing.
Good for her, because she was the only one out of the 5 that managed to get him out of that room before he signed anything.
Yeah, she knew her rights.
Well, that doesn't make the other people less.
It doesn't make any people less, but she was aware of.
She was on a mission.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what I wanted to bring about Yusuf's mother is, I guess it's not really portrayed in When They See Us, and that's really the only frame of reference we have. I think there is a documentary as well, but we haven't watched it. We don't know about the actual lives, but the way that it was presented in When They See Us, it didn't seem like, maybe she didn't need to feel guilty, but Corey went with Yusuf to the station to make sure that they would be home in time so Yusuf's mum doesn't get angry at Yusuf, right?
Yep.
And maybe I focused on that too much, but it didn't seem like Yusuf's mum had any sort of
acknowledgement or appreciation.
Yeah,
of the
remorse
situation.
is too strong. Thank you. It didn't seem like she had any of that in regards to Corey's mother or Corey, right? As the series went on, we started to see Corey's mother, go on extreme sides of the spectrum in regards to her as a person and it as a byproduct, the way that she was as a mother. But and they did make mention that they're not close, Yusuf and Corey's mum. They did mention that. But it didn't seem like there was any agony for her that, Corey, who ended up having, the longest time served and arguably the most painful journey, it didn't seem like there was any sort of, recollection of that. In the interview with Oprah, Yusuf did make a mention that, I will do anything for Corey. And that was quite nice because I felt like that wasn't exemplified through When They See Us.
True. I think, and I appreciate that Yusuf's mother wanted to do everything she could to get Yusuf alive after prison.
Yes.
To get Yusuf through prison. It's understandable any mother would do that.
Yes.
But to what extent would you completely shut out the one person that was there for your son?
Yeah.
He was begging for letters. Just a letter from Yusuf would be enough to know that, he's looking for that connection.
Yeah.
He didn't have anything.
Yeah.
The mom wasn't going to visit Corey all that much because it was so far out. And she just said, no, I'm trying to get my son out of prison. Understandable. I'm trying to get my son reacquainted into society.
But I think in her focus on trying to get her son out of prison, it wasn't isolated in if it was possible to help others along the way.
Yeah.
And that's really all I wanted to bring up because it seemed like such a small thing, but it just really kept nagging at me, especially because when we continue to watch 2 and 3, we're like, where the fuck is Corey? And the last episode so aptly focuses on Corey and how heartbreaking that was. But we will come to Corey. Let's talk about Yusuf.
Yeah, so I don't know to what extent the documentary covered, but from When They See Us, Yusuf gets released, and I think they go to some sort of meeting and where they meet up with Kevin.
Yeah.
And they're talking about where Corey could be. So Yusuf has been out for quite some time, and I would have assumed at least you could try and find out the one guy who was there by your side when you needed him most. You've not heard from him for years.
Yeah.
No sort of communication, no nothing. Are you out and about? And
like maybe he tried, but that wasn't shown. Or
it wasn't shown. It wasn't
made
made clear.
Yeah.
And to me, it felt really wrong. And if I was Corey, I would be really, really pissed. I would be angry. But you can tell he has a different kind of heart to mine. And
I think the resources he dug within himself to survive for 13 years has probably allowed him to be able to get through.
Yeah, because he was in solitary confinement for the better part of that period.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Corey.
Yeah,
Let's continue on Yusuf before we move on.
Yeah, it's just...
I don't know if it's a mask to the world, but when we were watching the interview, Oprah's interview, it seemed like Yusuf has dealt with this more than the rest of them. Like, it seems like he's more at peace. Maybe it's his religion, but it kind of seems like he's more adjusted.
Yeah, he definitely seems the better adjusted among the group. But my other thing that I really got pissed at him for, even though he was a kid, he left Corey right after he was released from jail after the mom came. He completely forgot about Corey. Granted, he's been sitting somewhere for several hours being grilled. But once you're told, you can go with your mom, and you let Corey just sit there, pretty much forgot about him.
Yeah.
Just, that was a bit too much, man. I'm not as good a person as Corey is, and I would be holding a grudge until the day I die.
Fair enough. So is that the only reason why you want to talk about Yusuf? Because that's the only thing you're mentioning.
Because he bloody pissed me off.
Okay.
He really did piss me off.
It's a weird dynamic when you're the one in rage mode.
No, because it just speaks to someone's character. He says he's religious. and whatnot.
That's very common, my love.
But to what extent then?
Yeah, I know.
Extend your hand to a bloody neighbor.
Have you met
who
the
was
world?
there for you when you're struggling?
Have you met the world?
Well, where is that verse in the Bible or in the Quran?
Quran.
Just go and get them, man. You know,
But there is an inherent hypocrisy to religion, and we're not going to cover that today.
All I'm saying is Yusuf pissed me off. And
Yeah, we know. It's not all you're saying. We know.
And he has 10 kids.
Children.
But well, he's been through stuff, as well. And I'm not taking anything away from him. It's just that
sure?
I feel like he could have handled this way better. He was almost 16 as well. His bus ticket or whatever said he's 16, even though he was 15, right?
Yes.
Do you remember when you're 15?
Barely.
Oh, I can remember. And I was a bit competent to some degree to remember a friend.
Wow.
Just fucking annoying. Corey went through a lot of shit, which we'll get to. But anyway, let's go to someone else. We can talk about Kevin, the youngest one.
Can we?
Yeah.
Can we talk about Kevin?
Let's talk about Kevin.
Kevin was the one that was beat up, right?
Yeah.
That night?
Yep. Hit by a helmet with a cop. And they tried to pass it off as he was crushed by the lady when they were raping her.
I saw you, but I'll speak for myself. But I could see you in my periphery. I got quite emotional watching When They See Us. And the pain we will never understand, but on some level it is universal, right? What particularly stuck with me was when Kevin had a visit from his mum and from his sister, and they're all trying to cheer him up and they're talking about him. And the sister, first of all, she's fucking solid.
Oh, she's amazing.
She's amazing.
She's bloody amazing.
But the fact that she continued to blame herself for making Kevin's actually, no, Kevin wanted to sign the paper, but in any case, she blames herself for that whole ordeal, right? Yeah. And, she's explaining how, people were treating her differently at work, but she just tried to focus on herself and whatever's going to help her get through the day. And then it turned into this brown sugar love and basketball story where she's talking about how this guy comes into work and, it's just a nice pick me up, right? Or in the rom-coms is what you call a meet cute. Who would have thought I would have referenced the meet cute in When They See Us? Welcome. It's for your reference. You never know what you're going to get. But yeah, she talks about her experience, and she says you need to find hope. You need to find your thing. Yusuf has his religion. You need to find your own thing. Right. And she says that she was waiting for him for 3 days, and it's really cute and it's really light. And you can see Kevin really needs this interaction. And then it gets to a point where Kevin's like, oh, so how was it? Did you go on a date? Did you ask him out? What happened? And his sister really just heartbreakingly, so blatantly said, I feel like while you're in here, I shouldn't have any fun. I shouldn't be dating. I shouldn't be experiencing anything because you're in here suffering. And that really struck a chord with me because sad. These are kids, right? But it's also their families that are going through this.
Yeah, true. And she got through that because I think she said the mother talked to her that you could spend all this time wasting your energy on feeling guilty, or you could live your life and be happy. And at least finally she did decide to move on. She was not to blame there.
But it doesn't matter because as humans, we always try and find fault within ourselves.
True. Yeah. But there were two cops, two grown-ass men in that room, interviewing a 14-year-old as if he was some sort of adult. Then audacity that even a judge would allow this in trial. I don't even understand this bloody American system anyway.
Yeah.
Far
I
fucking
don't think
out.
most Americans do.
Far out. It's fucking ridiculous. You could allow a kid, 14 years old, in a room with coppers to confess without any guardian, without a lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You would think once people knew those facts that it would be case closed. We don't need Hercule Poirot to come here and solve the mystery. It was a mishandling of justice.
Yeah, far out. There's a few more steps before they even get convicted.
Yeah.
What the fuck was happening in between?
Yeah. And it was a very opposite experience to watching The People versus OJ. OJ has joined Twitter, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Follow him?
No, thank you.
Are you sure?
No. And if you guys have
You
us
want to
on,
buy him a glove?
it won't fit.
Then he's innocent, mate.
Yeah. Personally, if you guys are following us on our Twitter, please don't like and retweet OJ. I don't want to see him on our timeline. But anyway, just to give a contrast, watching The People versus OJ, like the Central Park Five, you knew the verdict of OJ, right? But you still watched it and you're like, how the fuck did this guy? How was he innocent? Because while you were watching The People versus OJ, you're just like, how the fuck? Like, how? With everything that I can see with my eyes watching this, how was he innocent? And that was a little tussle while we were watching it. But on the flip side, more sadly, watching this, it was so blatantly obvious that this was not handled correctly. But they were still determined to be guilty. And what I don't understand was, and it is a portrayal, so we don't know 100% for sure how it was handled or what was said behind closed doors, but it didn't make sense how, okay, by default, we're just going to blame these kids out of nowhere. We're not going to investigate. We're just going to run it the way that we want to run it, right? Felicity Huffman's character, Linda Fairstein. I don't understand. Was it because there were too many cases? Was it because she had a racial bias? Like, why was it so clean cut? And why was she so hell-bent on making this a case that wasn't a case? The only funny thing about fabricating cases was McNulty with the homeless people in The Wire. That got fucking morbid, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the only, and I guess it's also like fictional sort of crime shows. And I think, watching The Wire, but that is, it still has semblances of personal experience. But if you talk about Oz, for example, Oz is an amazing show and it has dark moments, but it also has light moments as well. But a part of me feels guilty enjoying Oz now because these are actual stories in When They See Us about kids that went through that sort of system. You know what I mean? It's a bit more sobering, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Let's talk about Raymond.
Oh, Raymond.
He's Puerto Rican, right? I wonder, I know it's semantics and it's probably nitpicking, but I wonder if it bothered him because a lot of the reports in the media and even with Oprah, they kept saying 5 black guys. Do you think that bothers him?
I don't think it does. He's a person of color.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying like, but I don't know. It was just oversimplifying. But anyway, yes, let's talk about.
Well, I don't think it bothers him. But yeah, it's hard to deal with the law, especially after coming out, because I think in prison he was dealing some sort, or he was some sort of supplier.
They showed the progression, the graduation of his sort of criminal-ish behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, and when he came out, he struggled finding a job, and he fell back to what I think he knew or what he thought was comfortable with him, and that was drug dealing. which he gets arrested for.
I do think that possibly, and I don't want to be insensitive because these are real lives, right? But I do feel like it was a bit possibly oversimplified. Like, obviously, I don't know what the truth is. I'm not saying as soon as Raymond came out, he started doing criminal things again, but it just seemed it so he tried his best, and then when he was with his girlfriend and they wanted to get a new place and he couldn't make the rent, that's when he started doing it, which is fine. And again, I can't really talk to what the truth is, but it kind of reminded me of Straight Outta Compton, like just a bit more cleanly sanitized, like it just fit very neatly. And again, these are real lives, so I don't want to be too insensitive. But when they showed everyone coming out of jail, it all just seemed like it was quite easy to transition out of that when, by all accounts, it wouldn't be, right? They were so young, they'd spent time for something that they didn't even do, and then they have to try and fit back into the new world. It might have just been a production decision because they wanted to just succinctly, capture these lives and they didn't have time to stretch and expand these stories. Or it might also be a sense of these are their personal lives and this is all that they want to share. But I just wanted to make a point when we were watching When They See Us, when they were coming out of jail, it just seemed like they just perfectly transitioned into normal life, which I think is also, in a sense, a discredit to their suffering.
Yeah.
But again, it's their lives. Maybe they didn't want to share everything, but it just seemed like things were too perfect. And seeing that Raymond relapsed, for lack of a better word, I was like, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it
That
does.
makes sense.
Anyone would struggle to try and find a job with a record, and he did. We were shown everyone went through some when they left prison, when they got released, but not to an extent where probably to show it probably seemed a little bit too simplified, but they did try and address it to some level or to some degree.
But I think that's part of the problem because, you talk about jails being a place for rehabilitation so they can come back into normal society, right? So they come back into normal society. But there aren't any structures that are in place to transition them back into a normal life. It's like, you were a criminal, but you've served your time now. Go and be a good person. Go and get a job. But then you can't even get a job. Like, where does the hand meet the other?
And they did cover this because they're explaining to, I think it was still Raymond, his PO was telling him, if you want to work here and you tick the box that you're a convict and they've already had a convict in the kitchen, you cannot associate with other convicts outside while you're on parole. You can't work there. So what do? You tick that box and then you can't work there. So it's a problem that needs addressing because prison needs to be a rehabilitation, but that's not the case. People probably most of the time come out worse than they went in.
And that's exactly what we're talking about in When They See Us. Like from what we understand, from what we see, prisons, it's like the laws of the jungle, right? Only the strongest and only the fittest survive. So if you're a lovely, soft person when you go in, if you want to make it out, you kind of need to harden up. And sometimes that also means, getting into dodgy shit. And I don't know what the stats are, but, there are people that go in for light crimes and then they get involved in even darker shit while they're in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably a Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. He's talked about incarceration, so I'm sure the stats are there.
Yeah.
So head on over to our best friend John Oliver's website for more resources.
Antron and Kevin pretty much said the same thing with Oprah, that they had to do shit they're not pleased with in prison just to survive.
Yeah.
Antron said that he's become completely broken from what he used to be. he cannot recollect whatever that kid was anymore. That's not him. He's
And
admitted that he's broken and he's that way. He doesn't want to do therapy.
but that's also something that I want to touch on as well, because he is further along than most in the sense that he can recognize that he doesn't have enough resources within himself to repair himself.
Yeah.
Right? But because there's still that stigma of I'm a man, I need to cop it. He acknowledges it, his wife acknowledges it, but he just doesn't want to. It's just, I guess it's just too far or too real. And that's sad because I guess with time, mental illness or, seeking help professionally will start to be more widely accepted. But I guess, in the time that he grew up and trying to figure things out, or maybe he just feels like, I'm okay-ish the way I am now. I don't want to have to resurface under to grab everything.
Yeah. And he says he lives next to Raymond anyway, so he could go there and when he needs help.
Yeah, and a support network is so vital.
Yeah. And another thing is Raymond was used they made a deal with Raymond that Raymond would confess to being a witness and then implicate other people.
Yeah.
And when they're trying to when Linda was trying to map all this out, she realized she cannot try all these 5 boys at the same time.
Yeah.
She would have to split them. And not just split them randomly, strategically split them so that she can get a conviction. She used, there's some flexibility in this justice system that just boggles my mind in what you can and cannot do.
It works for people that want it to work. White collar crime isn't shunned upon the same way blue collar crime is.
True. Well, we've just had that coaching teacher. He was sentenced to 1 day in prison for racketeering. He got 600 grand to get people into a uni.
Yeah.
And 1 day in bloody prison.
That's what I'm saying. And let's make things light for a second. I always said with The Purge, again, I know it's being milked for all it's worth, but the first Purge is quite great. Anyway, if we existed within the realms of The Purge, I would white collar crime the shit out of that night. I wouldn't even why would I go around stabbing people? I would embezzle so much money. That's what I would be doing during the night of the Purge, because that doesn't get shown, but that's the most satisfying for me. Stealing everyone's money.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And then there was Corey.
Again, accolades to Jarrell for his outstanding performance of Corey. That last episode will continue to stick with me. Personally, I don't know, or maybe I just need time, but personally, I don't know if I will rewatch When They See Us, or at least I need a gap of time, because I cried multiple times in all of the episodes.
Yeah. We especially had to pause the 4th episode multiple times just to give ourselves a break to see what he's gone through. As a 16-year-old, he was sent to Rikers.
Yeah.
He got beaten so much, and apparently there's so many things they've left out because they can't speak of it.
Yeah.
And you could see in his eyes, he's been through shit.
Yeah.
And it's affected him. I feel for him so much. My heart goes out to him. He had what he had to endure in his life. No one should be able to go through that. No one should go through that.
And even watching the Oprah interview, Corey is such an intrinsic person. I don't know how much of that came out of his years in solitary, or if he's always been like that. But he doesn't say much.
Yeah, he's a man of few words now. Yeah, for sure.
But not even that cliche. You can just see that there's so much depth to him. There's so much pain, but there's also so much strength. in his character. I don't mean it in like, oh, he says few words, but when he says it, it's important. That's not what I'm talking about.
That's not what I meant.
I know.
Like, I feel like his personality changed completely from what he used to be or what we've shown in the show from what we see him now as.
Yeah.
They portrayed him as this extrovert sort of character. They
gradually broke him down.
And to see the man before you in the Oprah interview, you just feel like there's a disconnect. That's not him. And you could see his struggle, you could see his suffering, and when he speaks, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
I started tearing. I can feel his pain even now.
And Oprah moved on when she was asking a question, and Ava's like, actually, Corey has something to say. Right? I think that's when they were talking about Linda.
Yeah.
And he's saying she was just doing a job, but it caught up to her.
Yeah.
Right? Like when people go through such traumatic experiences, and people are like, how did you get through it? A lot of the sort of common responses are, I don't even think about that. I just try to get through what's in front of me. Right? But I genuinely don't even know how Corey got through those 13 years. And at every probation review or whatever you want to call it, he kept not wanting to admit something that he didn't do, which is very admirable. But my heart also broke for him as well. Shout outs to Logan Marshall Green for playing the guard that Corey really needed.
Yeah, Corey did really need
every time those two were on the screen, instant tears. But it's heartbreaking, but it's also heartwarming at the very same time. Because, progressively through episode 4, you started to lose trust in people in regards to Corey. So when we saw Logan Marshall Green's character, I'm like, okay, he's being nice, but when is he going to take advantage of our boy?
Yeah.
Right? Like, when is this going to happen? And I was constantly on edge for Corey. And it's nice to see that, there are people embedded within the prison system that genuinely are there to help.
Yeah.
That aren't using the little authority they have to overpower people, which we saw with quite a few of the guards.
Yeah. And even Corey, when Marshall brought in some books for Corey to read, and Corey's like, I will look after you, I will give you the blessings after I leave here. Marshall was like, nah, none of that. Yeah. Don't even speak of that.
Oh, and then when Corey was like, I like it when you call me kid.
Yeah, oh my God.
Just fatality. Done. We were done. But I do just want to touch on this because we are wrapping up for time. We've seen quite a few prison shows and movies, and the way that they portrayed isolation in When They See Us, I think, is one of the most lasting that I've ever seen. The most common sort of isolation sort of scenes that you have is, the camera spinning around and they're just going crazy and putting poo-poo on the walls. But what I really appreciated about When They See Us is, yes, he's there by himself, but he's imagining talking to his little lady love. Sorry, I forget her name. The one that he was having dinner with that night. He saw his mum, and heartbreaking, he saw his mum say things that she would never say to him in real life.
Yeah.
As a way to heal. Right? Also, shout out to Niecy Nash. I personally have never really seen her in serious roles. I know she was in Clean House. And she kind of did comedian sort of stuff. But who knew that she had so much depth to her? And let's talk about Corey's mother before we run out of time.
No, even before that, sorry. Yeah. Corey has these hallucinations to keep him going in solitary confinement. Yeah. And one of those is his relationship with his brother Norman, or Marcy.
Marcy, thank you.
So after this moment, and Marcy telling Corey how much she'll always be there for him and she loves him, he gets called out of solitary confinement to go and see the bishop.
Yeah.
And he's told that Norman was shot, or rather Marcy has died.
Yeah.
And after that, it's a downward spiral. He can't picture Norman anymore. He can't picture Marcy anymore. It's all broken down.
Yeah.
And he's clinging on to at least a visit from the mother, who's all right. Niecy Nash. She played the hell out of this character.
She did say something very poignant in the Oprah interview, saying that, you know, in regards to her playing Corey's mum, and speaking to Corey's mum, you know, even though something happened years ago, doesn't mean it's in your rear view. And she was saying, even speaking to Corey's mum, it was literally on the surface, her pain and what she's gone through.
Yeah. She agrees that she wasn't the best mother. She knows that. She accepts that. And then...
Are you sure? It seems like she didn't. Do you mean before she was religious?
After.
Nah.
She came back to visit Corey after she's religious.
Yeah, but
and
she said...
that conversation was quite crap.
That was so wrong.
It was really, really wrong. Your son is there.
She wouldn't say, I love you.
Yeah.
She wouldn't say, I love you. And it's like, do you think just because you're saved now that all of your wrongs are right? And the way that, you know what? I guess the takeaway is no one can fuck you up more than your parents.
True that.
Aside from the judicial system. But in very real ways, your parents can fuck you up in sometimes irreparable ways. Right? But it's incredible. It's incredible that Corey got through his jail time.
Yeah, for sure. And the fact that he wanted to be transferred to a different jail closer to where the mother is, only to be sent farther away.
Yeah.
He said this to Marshall. He said that I'm going to put in my transfer because I have used up all my bad luck. Surely nothing else bad can happen from now on.
Yeah.
That fourth episode really took something to watch. The fact that that's his life. Far out, man. It's just heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking.
So...
You know what they need to do?
Oh, okay.
They need to set up a GoFundMe for him because I feel like I need to donate something. just something to show that your life is appreciated. You're not alone.
No, they in the end credits of When They See Us, they did say that Corey has an apparel company. So he can probably...
Still, his children, his grand. I
don't think Corey has children. But, you know, instead of charity, how about we support his business?
Yeah. Well, still, I feel like I need to give something.
Where did that high-spirited nature go? It disappeared.
I'll be rocking some Corey t-shirts, mate.
And that, my friends, is the millennial age.
No.
What are you?
All I know is this man does not need to work another day in his life, for sure.
Okay. Are you okay now?
Yeah, I'm done now.
Okay, perfect. And every one of the exonerated five, except for Corey, left New York. He's the only one that's still there, right? So that's us, guys. That's When They See Us. We went to places that in some senses we didn't have a frame of reference for. But hopefully you guys appreciate this episode in ways that we might have misstepped. We hope that you guys forgive us and understand our intention of bringing up this episode. If you also aren't African American, but you can still resonate with this story, I feel like this is something that everyone should consume.
Yeah.
And it's so essential.
Because everyone needs to know their rights. Everyone needs to know how fucked up the system is because it's not going to change otherwise. Is it? And before that, we need to just talk about Olinda now because she has gotten some slack. Apparently, she's now off social media.
Well, she stepped down
and
from a lot of
she stepped down from a lot of board positions and stuff. But far out, if there's any sort of, I don't even want to say justice in this world, but Jesus Christ, she needs to
Where's
pay something.
Lamar?
But yeah, she something needs to be done. Either someone just some legal shit. She needs to be in jail for something. What she did there was not legal.
Yes. But that, I guess that's a conversation for another day. Also, Ava was saying this has nothing to do with Linda. These are the stories of the exonerated five. So whether she does get arrested or not, it's not really the focus of this documentary, my love.
I know. It's just
But
frustrating.
your frustration and exasperation is exactly the response that people should be feeling when they're watching this documentary, because it's not right.
Yeah, no, you're right. Go vote for people who will make a change. Mate, bloody hell.
Can we not end this on a political note?
It's not. Anyway, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. And as from someone who is from a society where law, justice means shit all, just, man, if you have an opportunity, just, I don't know, pick up a book, do something.
Okay. So Oti has taught us a valuable lesson, like the end of this episode. Sometimes, like life, it isn't tied in a pretty bow and it just ends in a mess. What do you want from us, guys? We're fallible humans talking about some really heavy shit, okay? If you want to hear some fun stuff, we've got lots of other episodes that cover that. But this was a very essential dialogue to have and to contribute to. And we couldn't let the time go by without talking about when they see us. So I'm very glad that we did this today. And if you're still listening to us, hopefully you're glad that you joined us along this journey. If you guys have any sort of experiences that you want to share, or if you want to correct us on anything that we've said, we'll more than humbly accept that as well, because we're really just having a chat after we've watched the series and the Oprah interview. I also want to let's end it on this note. Let's have a nice little pretty bow that we end the episode with before we go to For Your Reference. The cutest thing in the world is Oprah Winfrey. And the cutest thing about Oprah Winfrey is she thought she could quit the world, but she didn't realize that we still need her. We're trash. We still need Oprah, right? She retired. She has a magazine. She has a network, and she slowly started to do interviews on her network. And I'm so glad in this platform with Leaving Neverland. And now when they see us, no one else can tackle such heavy subject matter with real people that actually experienced it. And create light moments like Oprah did. She talked about how 4 of them had wives, right? After the settlement money. And she made a joke with Corey saying, I'm sure all the ladies are hitting you up now. No one else. Don't at me. Only Oprah can do that.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Oh, at you
Again.
or come out. Oh.
Again, I just ended it so beautifully.
Sorry.
Fuck out of here, man.
Yeah, sorry.
Someone collect your boy OT because he's wilding out here. Jesus Christ, are you? See, and this is why we should rebrand as Daddywood, because you fucking. I can't deal with you. Let's finish before your reference.
All right. My reference for this week is Serial, the podcast, because Sarah Koenig goes into super levels of investigative journalism to try and figure out what happened to Hae Min Lee and how the case was handled and if Adnan is innocent or guilty. It's just, it shows you the role journalism has to play in the justice system. Something that it failed to do in When They See Us. So I feel like if someone saw the story unfold and thought this is all right, then surely our journalists are failing us. And that day they did in the conviction of this case, not raising awareness, not seeing that things don't fall into place like this. Anyway, listen to Serial. It's really, really good. And Sarah Connick goes above and beyond trying to figure out exactly what happened.
But there is a mini-series. Is it HBO?
Forget that. Listen to the podcast.
Oh, look at you, breaking the mold. Is this the first No, actually, I've referenced the game.
Oh, you reckon?
So, woot woot,
You
toot
reckon,
toot.
mate?
I'm tooting my horn.
Oh, this little poppy pop syndrome, eh? I don't want to see the big man win, eh?
You know what? You know what's going to happen? If no one's listened to any of our other episodes and they just want to hear about when they see us, they're not going to know about this tall poppy pop and what the fuck we're talking about. But if you've listened to us for the first time, hi guys, this is a really late welcome if you're a first listener. But thank you for sticking by. For your reference, not a whole reference to Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, but if you've watched Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, they do a sort of satire on the documentary style where John Hamm's the cult leader, and that's quite interesting. And they make a quip at how it changes verdicts, documentaries, but in some ways they can be quite useful. So what I'm going to reference this week is much along the same vein with you I mentioned earlier in the episode, Making a Murderer, talking about the Avery family. But that's it. That's it, guys. We've got the Serial podcast, segments of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and also Making a Murderer. Thanks for staying with us. Hopefully our unraveling was somewhat, provide some levity to you. Otherwise, we love you either way. On Twitter and Instagram, we are For Your Ref Pod. You can send us an email.
hello@fyipodcast.com.
If you love us, subscribe so you can get our episodes hot off the press. And leave us a rating and review if you also want to as well.
Yeah, see ya and read a book.
Thanks, guys.